Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I came here today to remind somebody that the greatest strength you will ever discover in your life is not in your own will, not in your own plans, not in your own dreams, but in the power of respecting God's will. Respecting God's will requires surrendering your own, because the deepest test of faith is not how loud you can shout, not how many scriptures you can quote, not how much you declare with your lips, but how much you are willing to lay down your own desires when they collide with the divine direction of God. Surrender is not a word people like to hear because it feels like losing. It feels like giving up control. It feels like handing over the steering wheel of your life to someone else. But when it comes to walking with God, surrender is not defeat, it is victory. The truth is, our human will is limited, fragile, and often clouded by emotions, fears, and selfish desires. We make decisions based on what we see in the moment, but God makes decisions based on eternity. When we respect His will above our own, we acknowledge that He sees what we cannot see, He knows what we cannot know, and He prepares us for what we cannot imagine. Think about how many times in life we've chosen our way over His way, only to discover later that our choice led us into pain, confusion, or regret. We thought it was right, we thought it was good, we thought it was safe, but in the end it only reminded us of how limited our understanding is. Respecting God's will requires humility, and humility is the soil where faith can grow. You cannot truly walk by faith if you are determined to walk only by your own plan. Faith is trusting the unseen hand of God even when your logic cannot trace it, even when your heart does not fully understand it, even when your flesh is fighting against it. Respecting His will means saying, "Lord, I had a plan, but I trust your plan more. I had a dream, but I believe your dream is greater. I had a desire, but I know your desire will never fail." Surrendering your will to God is not just about the big life decisions. It's also about the daily choices, the small acts of obedience, the quiet moments when no one is watching. It's easy to talk about surrender in a church service, to lift your hands and sing about giving everything to God. But real surrender shows up when you have to forgive someone who hurt you deeply, because God's will is forgiveness. Real surrender shows up when you choose integrity over compromise, even when lying could have benefited you in the short term. Real surrender shows up when you release bitterness, when you let go of jealousy, when you silence pride, because you respect that God's will is not just about what you do, but about who you become. And here's the challenge: our will does not die easily. The flesh fights back, pride rises up, control grips tight. We want to write the script of our own story, forgetting that God is the author and the finisher. Respecting His will means allowing Him to edit the pages of your life, even if it means scratching out what you thought was the perfect plan. You may not understand why He delays certain blessings, why He closes certain doors, why He redirects you in ways that seem uncomfortable, but respect says, "I trust you even here." Respect says, "Even when I don't agree, I obey." Respect says, "Your ways are higher than mine, and I choose to yield." When Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, facing the cross, He gave us the ultimate example of surrender. He said, "Not my will, but yours be done." That was not an easy prayer. That was not a casual moment. That was the Son of God sweating drops of blood, wrestling with the reality of pain, suffering, and death. Yet He respected the will of the Father above His own feelings. And because He surrendered, salvation came to the world. That shows us that respecting God's will is not just about our own lives, it's about the impact our surrender has on others. When you yield to God, it blesses more than you. It touches your family, your children, your community, and generations to come. Your respect for His will has ripple effects beyond what you can see. Respecting God's will requires surrendering your own dreams and exchanging them for His. Sometimes this means letting go of things you love. Sometimes this means walking away from relationships, opportunities, or places that feel comfortable. Respect doesn't always make sense in the moment, but it makes sense in eternity. When Abraham respected God's will and left his homeland without knowing where he was going, he surrendered the comfort of the familiar to embrace the promise of the unknown. That surrender turned into a covenant, and that covenant birthed nations. Respecting God's will is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your true story. Too often, people fear surrender because they think God will take away everything good. But the truth is, when you surrender, God replaces your good with His best. What you thought was success, He turns into significance. What you thought was stability, He turns into destiny. What you thought was comfort, He turns into calling. Respecting His will means believing that whatever He asks you to lay down, He will replace with something greater, something eternal, something that cannot be stolen or destroyed. Surrender is not a one-time event, it is a daily posture. Every morning when you wake up, you have to decide whose will you will follow. Will it be your own will, led by feelings, circumstances, and limited understanding? Or will it be God's will, led by faith, obedience, and trust in His promises? Respecting His will requires constant alignment. Just like a car needs regular adjustments to drive straight, your soul needs daily surrender to stay aligned with God's path. Without it, you drift with it. You walk steady in purpose. Respecting God's will is not always easy, but it is always worth it. Because the moment you surrender, peace enters. The moment you surrender, clarity comes. The moment you surrender, the burden lifts. And while your flesh may resist, your spirit will rejoice, because you know you are walking not by your own might, not by your own power, but by His Spirit. Respecting God's will unlocks doors that human effort cannot open, because there are some places in life that no amount of talent, no amount of connections, no amount of hustle, and no amount of striving can get you into. You can push and pull, you can strategize and scheme, you can knock until your hands are raw, but if it's not the door God has appointed for you, it will not open. And yet, the moment you align yourself with His will, the moment you submit and surrender, the doors that once resisted you begin to swing wide without effort. That's the difference between living by human effort and living by divine alignment. One leaves you exhausted, frustrated, and burned out. The other carries you with grace, with favor, with opportunities that go beyond what you deserve or even imagine. People spend their whole lives trying to create opportunities, but opportunity is not something you have to chase when you are in God's will. Opportunity chases you, blessings overtake you, doors open not because of who you know, but because of who you honor. That's why respecting God's will is so powerful. It places you in the flow of divine timing, where things happen suddenly, where favor finds you in the right place at the right time, where what was once locked is suddenly accessible. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He respected God's will even when life didn't make sense. He respected God when his brothers betrayed him, when he was thrown into the pit, when he was sold into slavery, when he was falsely accused, when he was locked up in prison. At any point he could have turned bitter, he could have rejected God, he could have chosen his own way, but he stayed faithful, he stayed respectful of God's plan. And because of that, one day the door that no human effort could have opened swung wide. He went from prisoner to prime minister in a single moment. No strategy could have done that. No human influence could have elevated him that fast. That was the result of respecting the will of God. Doors are symbolic of access, of opportunity, of destiny. And in life, there are doors that are meant for you, and there are doors that are not. Respecting God's will means learning to discern the difference. Some doors will tempt you, but they are traps. Some doors will look glamorous, but they are distractions. Some doors will promise quick success, but they will rob you of purpose. But when you respect God's will, you stop forcing your way into doors that were never yours, and you start waiting for the doors He designed specifically for you. And when those doors open, no man can shut them. Human effort can get you recognition, but only God's will can give you revelation. Human effort can bring temporary achievements, but only God's will can birth eternal impact. Human effort can place you on a platform, but only God's will can sustain you there without collapse. Too many people have burned themselves out knocking on doors that God never called them to, and then they wonder why life feels empty. Respect is trusting that if a door didn't open, it wasn't meant for you. Respect is believing that God is not withholding good from you, He is protecting you from what would have destroyed you. The beauty of respecting His will is that the doors He opens, He also equips you to walk through. You don't have to pretend, you don't have to fake it, you don't have to fear being exposed. When God opens the door, He has already prepared you for the room on the other side. That's why when David respected God's will and refused to take matters into his own hands by killing Saul, God opened the door to the throne at the right time. David didn't have to manipulate his way into kingship. He didn't have to fight his way into leadership. All he had to do was respect God's timing, and the door to destiny opened when it was supposed to. Respecting God's will is also about patience. Sometimes the door is real, the promise is true, but the timing is not yet. And our impatience makes us want to force it. But a forced door will never lead to lasting blessings. Respect waits. Respect trusts. Respect believes that the God who holds the keys knows when to turn the lock. And when He does, the waiting will make sense. The delays will be redeemed. The disappointments will turn into testimonies. What makes the doors God opens so powerful is that they don't just bless you, they bless others. When Esther respected the will of God and stepped into the door of the king's palace, she wasn't just elevated for herself, she was elevated to save a nation. When Peter respected God's will and stepped through the door of preaching at Pentecost, thousands were saved. The doors God opens always connect to a bigger story. They are never just about you. Respecting His will positions you not only for your own blessing, but also to be a blessing. And sometimes the respect for His will is shown in how you handle closed doors. Closed doors are not rejection, they are redirection. A closed door is God's way of saying, not this one, not here, not now. And if you respect Him enough to accept the no, He will lead you to the yes that was always meant for you. Too many people waste energy crying over doors that closed instead of praising God for the ones He will open. Respect says, if you close it, I trust you. If you open it, I will walk through it. Respecting God's will unlock supernatural favor. People will wonder how you got the position, how you landed the opportunity, how you received the blessing, and you won't even be able to explain it in human terms. Because it wasn't your resume, it wasn't your connections, it wasn't your effort. It was God. Respect makes room for miracles. Respect makes way for provision. Respect opens doors that no man can shut, and shuts doors that no man can open. And once God opens the door, respect keeps you humble enough to remember who opened it. Because doors are not just entrances, they are assignments. Every door leads to a responsibility. Every opportunity carries weight. And only when you continue to respect God's will can you carry what's on the other side of the door without crumbling under it. Respecting God's will protects you from battles you were never meant to fight, because life is full of wars, struggles, and conflicts that look tempting for us to engage in, but were never assigned to us. The human instinct wants to fight everything, prove everything, defend everything, chase everything, But when you respect God's will, you begin to realize that not every battle is your battle. Some fights will drain you, some arguments will distract you, some wars will consume your peace, but when you stay in the will of God, He shields you from wasting your strength on things that don't belong to your destiny. Respecting His will gives you discernment to know when to stand still, when to walk away, and when to let Him fight for you. So many people live tired, weary, and defeated not because they lost the right battles, but because they exhausted themselves in the wrong ones. They fought for positions that God never assigned to them. They chased relationships that were never part of His plan. They defended their name when God wanted to defend it for them. They argued with people who were never going to understand them. And by the time they realize it, their strength is gone, their spirit is drained, their joy is robbed. But when you respect God's will, you avoid unnecessary wars. You learn that silence can be stronger than shouting. You learn that stillness can be louder than striving. You learn that God's protection is better than your own defense. Respecting God's will does not mean you will never face battles. It means you will only fight the ones that matter, the ones that are tied to your assignment, the ones that grow your faith and prepare your purpose. David did not fight every Philistine that came his way, but he did fight Goliath because that was the battle assigned to his destiny. If he had disrespected God's will and chased every fight, he may have worn himself out before facing the one that mattered most. The will of God filters your battles. It separates the distractions from the assignments, the petty from the purposeful, the temporary from the eternal. Sometimes respecting God's will feels like weakness because everything in you wants to clap back, wants to prove yourself, wants to defend your name, but God whispers, "This one is mine." And when you step back, you discover that His defense is stronger than your argument. He closes mouths you could never silence. He exposes lies you could never disprove. He lifts you higher than your critics could ever push you down. Respecting His will protects you not just from unnecessary battles, but from unnecessary scars. Because some battles may not kill you, but they will leave wounds that take years to heal. And God loves you too much to let you waste your strength on things that were never your fight. Israel in the wilderness is a perfect example. God told them not to pick certain fights with certain nations because those battles were not theirs. If they had disrespected His will and engaged anyway, they would have been destroyed before reaching the promised land. Respect means trusting that when God says do not fight, He sees dangers you cannot see, He knows outcomes you cannot predict, He is protecting you from enemies you are not ready for. Respect is restraint, and restraint is strength. Respecting God's will also protects your peace of mind, because battles are not just physical, they are emotional and spiritual. How many people have lost their peace because they fought with people online, with family members, with coworkers, with strangers? How many have lost sleep replaying arguments, rehearsing comebacks, carrying bitterness? But when you respect God's will, you can walk away from strife without feeling like you lost. You understand that not every insult requires a response. Not every provocation requires a reaction. Not every enemy requires your attention. Respect makes you secure enough to stay silent and let God speak for you. And sometimes the greatest battle God protects you from is yourself, because our pride wants to fight, our ego wants to win, our flesh wants to prove, but His will teaches us that surrender is stronger than pride, humility is stronger than ego, patience is stronger than force. Respecting His will protects you from the battle of self-destruction, from sabotaging your own destiny, from making choices that feel good in the moment but cost you later. Think about how many doors in life closed simply because someone fought a battle they weren't supposed to. They lost opportunities because they couldn't hold their tongue. They lost relationships because they couldn't let go of offense. They lost credibility because they couldn't resist proving themselves. But those who respect God's will stay standing because they didn't waste their strength. They still have oil for the journey. They still have peace for the process. They still have joy for the climb. Respecting God's will protects you because He knows what is coming ahead. There are enemies you don't even know exist yet, storms you don't even see forming, obstacles you don't even imagine waiting down the road. And sometimes He says, don't fight this one, because He is saving your strength for the bigger fight later. He is preparing you for the giant that will matter, for the storm that will test you, for the destiny that will stretch you. Respect means trusting that if He told you to step aside, it's because He has already arranged the victory in another way. This protection also covers your relationships. When you respect God's will, you avoid entangling yourself in connections that turn into battles. Some people look good, but they bring warfare into your life. Some opportunities look appealing, but they carry hidden conflicts. Respecting His will shields you from walking into partnerships, friendships, or deals that would drag you into constant battles that were never assigned to you. It saves you from wasting years of your life fighting for peace that should have been yours by obedience. Respect is not passive, it is active trust. It is saying, Lord, if you tell me to be quiet, I will be quiet. If you tell me to walk away, I will walk away. If you tell me to stand still, I will stand still. And in that trust, you discover that His protection is greater than your preparation. His strategy is greater than your defense. His covering is greater than your weapons. Respect doesn't make you weaker. It makes you stronger because you are backed by heaven. Respecting God's will protects you from battles you were never meant to fight, but it also positions you to win the battles you were meant to face. Because when you conserve your strength, when you save your oil, when you walk in wisdom, you arrive prepared for the fights that matter. And when you step onto that battlefield, you are not weary, you are ready. You are not drained, you are equipped. You are not fighting alone, you are fighting under divine assignment. And battles fought under God's assignment always lead to victory, always lead to growth, always lead to destiny unfolding.